Avi Avraham Ben Lulu is the founding chairman and the chief executive officer of the Abraham Global Peace Initiatives. And I'm going to begin with the name because your name is Abraham,
Yep.
and I can't imagine why you called this initiative that. So why don't we start there? What does your organization do?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me on today. I really appreciate that. The organization itself was created during the Abraham Accords, and we were very much inspired by them. We thought it was a great story and something that we can really stand behind as one of our universal values of defending Israel and promoting Israel and defending human rights at large and building bridges with non-Jewish communities. So Abraham, of course, as we all know, the father figure of the three monotheistic religions, and so we felt that it really embraced other religions. And as an organization, if you take a look at our board members and many of our constituents, they're not Jewish. In fact, we have constituents who are Muslim and Christian and so forth, and it really draws them into this commonality of belief systems. And so we felt that the name itself would resonate with many. Obviously, peace is an incredible tool in order to let people know that we really are about trying to build peace. It doesn't mean that we compromise Israel or its values and what it needs to do, but our core belief is that humans should live peacefully together. An initiative, we don't sit back, we take action, we get things done, we do things. And so that is really the core phrasing of the name. If you look at the logo, it also has the word, the biblical words in there, and the word tzedek, which is justice, and that's something that we strongly believe in.
Avi, you are in Jerusalem. You don't come from Jerusalem. You're in Canada. But right now you're here for an event which is dedication towards the Bedouin community in Israel since October 7th. Now, many of the Bedouins were killed on October 7th. Why did you choose this particular event now?
Well, so the background to that is that I was doing immediately after October 7th, I was doing a documentary. And I went over to the village of Rehat, which is a Bedouin village, and I interviewed about five Bedouins. And I was completely in shock at the heroism that they exemplified on that date, the stories that they have of saving Israelis, of saving Jews, are just incredible. And so, firstly, again, going back to our organization, as an organization that does look to building bridges, as an organization that wants to find those marginalized communities that want to support Israel, and through their testimonies, they said, "We're Israeli. We are proud to have done to have saved 30 kids at the Nova party and to have warned a platoon of soldiers and all of this. We're very proud of this." I felt it was such an incredible thing that we should recognize them for the incredible deeds that they've done, ensure that they stay close to Israel and to society. And so I said, okay, well, the next thing we can do is really bring them to Jerusalem, have dignitaries come out and give them these awards and make them feel, like superstars, which they really are for what they did. They're just ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. And that's the reason we partnered up with the Friends of Zion Museum, and we're doing this event.
Avi, one of the biggest problems that exists today is taking a story like this and magnifying that story. And when you look at even where you come from, Toronto, Canada, not all Canadians look at Israel or the Palestinians or the rest of the Middle East the same. Everybody has their own view of what is happening right now when it comes to the geopolitics here. So how do you take isolated stories like this and magnify them?
That's exactly one of the core reasons that we're doing it is because we want to magnify it, through the media and through our own lists and networks to get it back. And I've already spoken about this to groups in Canada, and they were shocked, they were dumbfounded. They didn't know that Bedouins actually helped and that they were involved and anything, quite frankly, about them. And so once they understood the story and its significance, they said, "This is a fantastic idea." But because of all the negativity and the stereotypes in the media in Canada, we don't have our shortage of that. Telling a story of non-Jews who participated and who themselves were kidnapped, their families were kidnapped, they themselves have been killed. I mean, one of them tells the story about his wife wearing a hijab, who was shot point blank by Hamas. That should resonate with, university campuses and the media and so forth.
But does it?
Well, we have to keep trying. It's going to be a tough, tough slug, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it and tell you, yeah, it's going to resonate. But we have to keep putting these stories out there, because if we don't, who will?
You have a deep knowledge of the Holocaust. You're an expert in this field. October 7th happens, and what goes through your mind in terms of the historical notes that people are going to look at when they look back in history of these two markers of the Jewish people?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I was doing my academic work on the Holocaust, I had interviewed, at that point, I was very young. I had interviewed many, many Holocaust survivors and recorded their testimonies, as many others have. And that's an important thing, of course, when you're combating Holocaust denial. I felt, having done that academically, I felt that I got to get on the ground quickly and try to interview as many as I can, for the same reason, because I felt, and it was already happening. It was already happening, a few days into, after October 7th. We were seeing the denials, we were seeing the distortions at the United Nations, we were seeing, feminist groups claiming that no rapes were happening. We were seeing those denials and distortions, shockingly, immediately after October 7th. Why? Because they were Jewish. That's the reason. That's the only reason. And so I wanted to get on the ground, and I wanted to document, as much as possible. Couldn't get everything, and I know that a lot of, media has, and there will be other sources, but it's so important for us to get this down on video and on paper, to ensure that those distortions, which are going to continuously happen for years and years to come, that we have the evidence locked in. And that was really the reason, and that's the comparison to the Holocaust and the denial that we're still even experiencing about the Holocaust itself. Hard to believe.
When you get questions from those that don't align with Israel, and they'll blame Israel for things and the atrocities and things that are happening to the Palestinian people, how do you respond?
Yeah, I mean, it's I get questions all the time, and look, you have to respond. I always tell people the truth. You have to say the truth, and you have to, verify it and validate it with evidence, to the extent. Now, you're going to have people who will still say, no, it was made up. That video footage is incorrect, etc., etc. We saw the same thing with Holocaust deniers. No matter what you say, you can go to court. No matter what you say, they're going to deny. Why? Because it's their propaganda. It's they have an agenda, and they're going to do it till the day they die. You're never ever going to convince those people. And there's a very, very big segment. We're seeing it on university campuses, we're seeing it in the media, we're seeing it in unions, and they will not accept the truth. They will absolutely not accept the truth. There's nothing that we could say to possibly win them over.
Well, where does that come from?
It comes from anti-Semitism, pure and simple. And they're hardcore anti-Semites. They believe in the various historical conspiracy theories, the old anti-Semitism, as we say. And then, of course, they believe in the end of Israel. They want the destruction of the state of Israel. So, it plays into all of these specters. And today, if you look at the anti-Semitism of today, it is so ruthless, and it comes from so many different. You've got the old anti-Semitism, you've got the new anti-Semitism, you've got the neo-Nazis or the Nazis, you've got the Islamic radicals, you've got the pro-Palestinian advocates on university campuses. The specter is so huge, even bigger than pre-Holocaust when you think about it. And so this is a very serious threat to us, to Israel and the Jewish community, because no matter what Israel does to defend itself right now in Gaza, those anti-Semites will be working, double time and are working double time to undermine Israel.
So many people are pointing to this as a core problem today, but it doesn't start at university level. If you could go back and you can talk to families and talk to educators and talk to parliaments, where would you begin?
Well, these days we've now graduated generations of students who have gone through these Israeli apartheid weeks and BDS campaigns on their campuses. So they've actually been brainwashed for like 20 plus years on campus. So they're all out into the business world and into government. But at the end of the day, I would really start with the let me actually give you an example. So I bring non-Jewish groups to Israel and to Jerusalem. The first place I start with them, always, I take them to the Israel Museum. Why the Israel Museum? Because there is the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I say to them, if they're Canadian or American, I say, do you question by any means that First Nations people lived in Canada or America, that there was a presence of the indigenous First Nations people? I'm like, no, absolutely not. I go, well, why not? Because there's graves and there's some evidence on the ground and so forth. And I go, well, why then do people question the fact that Jews had a presence on this very land? You look at the Dead Sea Scrolls right in front of your eyes, over 2,000 years old. You can, our land has so much Judaism in it, from coins and of course the temple, etc., and old synagogues in the Golan, etc. Why do people question the fact that Jews are indigenous to this land? And then of course, if you believe in the Bible, then it's all there. So why is it? And so I think if people need evidence. You can't dispute archival and fact-based evidence that is in our ground. And so you just have to give it to them in that way. I found that they totally changes them, and they accept it. Those that don't, they never will, and there's nothing more that you could say. They are just anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish right from their core.
Do you feel there's room for that middle, that you can actually change those that are in the middle?
Yes, I think that the middle is a key ground for us to get to. There are many people who believe in the state of Israel, who understand the importance of its existence. They're looking to us for answers and leadership, and so I really believe that we have to get to them as soon as possible in a very mass and dramatic way. We can't, get to 10 or 20 people at a time. We have to go big.
The Abraham Accords happened. One can question today, after October 7th, what's really happening, even as news really starts to shatter some of the feelings of what happened. Today, Egypt is even discussing possibly breaking the Camp David Accords. Serious times. My question to you is, as an organization that believes in peace and having had an event in the UAE in the Museum of Civilizations, do you feel that there's opportunity to still gain the trust of many in the Muslim countries? Or do you feel some of that has changed since October 7th?
During this time, since October 7th, I've stayed in touch with my contacts in the UAE and Morocco and elsewhere. And, we all understand that this is a difficult time. It's difficult for them just as much as it is for us. They want to maintain relations with us. They want to continue this effort. They want to expand this effort. We just have to wait for this war to be over, and then everybody's going to be all back in. So I'm very optimistic about that. I think there's really good intentions on all sides. None of the Abraham Accord countries have broken relations or connections with Israel. They do believe it's important, and this was taken into the equation, that should something like this arise. So I'm very hopeful that it can continue, and I'm hopeful as well that the Saudis will eventually join in, as will others. I think that once this war is over, and it's clear that Israel has won the war, nobody's going to want to see a repeat of this chaos again. People will be much more likely to come to the table.
Will it? Because now the Saudis have added the stipulation that there needs to be a two-state solution recognized with the Palestinians getting their state. That was not on the table to that extent months ago. It's a shift.
It's a shift. Look, they have to speak to the Arab street. That's the bottom line, and I think that that's what they're doing. Let's not forget that the Arab world is seeing Al Jazeera and is seeing the destruction in Gaza and the deaths, and they're being fed a lot of propaganda and a lot of misinformation, and so the Saudis are reacting to that by putting in their statements. I think that once again things die down, cool down, they're going to be back on the table. Inevitably, the Palestinian question will have to be solved one way or another, and that's maybe a story for another day.
Your own backyard isn't so simple. Canada has not backed Israel 100% even during the war. So, what do you see as the outcome of the war in your universities and just speaking to people, your next door neighbors, per se?
Yeah, look, I mean, and we've been my organization has been very, very vocal about our own government. We're not shy about it. We had warned our government before October 7th about funding UNRWA. We wanted Canada to stop funding UNRWA. I actually wrote an article asking if Canada is complicit in the murder, because if you recall, there were many terrorist incidents here in Israel prior to October the 7th, and I was fairly vocal about Canada sending money to an organization that is then funneling money to the Palestinian Authority, that is then funding the Pay for Slave program and other programs. So, we've been very vocal about the Canadian government. Unfortunately, it didn't resonate immediately, but it now has. It might be too little, too late. Our government unfortunately also plays to a local demographic, and so it's speaking from both sides of its mouth very, very often. That is not boding well in terms of university campuses. The campus situation is horrific. In fact, we just released a report that graded for the first time ever in Canada's history. And I'm really glad we did it because it sent a lot of shockwaves around the country. They graded 52 university campuses on the level of anti-Semitism that we could surmise from open sources, and so we gave the obvious universities. It was pretty obvious for anybody, the Fs, and then some got Ds and Cs, and quite a number. In fact, about 23 got As, which surprised me. But many universities just don't have the drama that some other universities do.
Look over to the United States. Do you feel the picture is similar?
The picture is very similar in the U.S. on campuses. The two feed off of one another. We don't see a big differentiation. And again, some campuses are worse than others, and it depends. It always depends on if the administration, and we saw the testimonies, from Harvard and MIT and Penn, which were shocking. It was just shocking to see what these presidents had to say. But it was so good for the rest of the country. I thought it was actually a gift to have presidents of these prestigious universities literally put their foot in their mouth and show how anti-Semitic their universities truly are. And so, that really opened the eyes of many American legislators and Canadian. And so we think that there is now starting to be a pushback. And I think there's also pushback as well from some people in the non-Jewish community who are concerned about their own belief system. They're saying, okay, they're starting with the Jews and they're coming after us next, so we should fight this as well.
One of the core projects that you have is an association with the police in Canada in particular. Can you share a little bit about why you did this, what it's about?
I have a long history with law enforcement, and I think it's vital, especially in the diaspora. I know it might seem different here in Israel, obviously, but who are the frontline people who are really going to respond to anti-Semitic incidents or violence? Who do you need to guard your schools and your synagogues? It's the police. Who are the first responders to any? It's the police. It's not the government. It's not the who are passing policy and laws, but the police are really the people on the ground who are protecting the Jewish community. And I got to tell you, we've had serious issues in Toronto. with demonstrations and calls for genocide against the Jewish people, and blocking actually Jewish neighborhoods, passageways into Jewish neighborhoods, and the police have been very responsive. There's debate about, some people want them to be more responsive, but they have been fairly responsive to curtail that. And I'm very, very proud and pleased with that. And I believe that that's because of their relationship with the Jewish community. They see the Jewish community as vital and important, and so they want to have that good relationship. So I've been fortunate to build this relationship right across the country, pretty much in every province, and now also with the Americans, with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, which is the largest police association in the world, actually. So I had the opportunity of taking them just last April to Auschwitz, and then to celebrate Israel's 75th birthday here.
Which you didn't see a lot of celebrations near the end of that with what happened currently.
It's hard to believe.
Avi, I do want to end with, the word anti-Semitism is resonating everywhere. But there are times when people are calling it, and it's not anti-Semitism. And doesn't that make it more difficult when we are dealing today with such heavy amounts of hate and anti-Semitism?
You mean they're trying to rephrase it to?
Well, not just rephrase it. When people just cry wolf on every incident being anti-Semitic. And to be clear, there's an abundance of it. Now, it's great for raising money and great for getting people nervous, but the reality is there are serious incidents that one can quantify and qualify as anti-Semitic acts.
Yeah, well, the bar has been raised because, when I started in this field, 30 years ago, a little swastika on a building, was something that everybody reacted to. And it's important, but today we're dealing with, violence and just a higher degree. So the issue is that it's become a tsunami. And every single day, I get emails and reports from various people in the community saying, I saw this on social media, and I saw this on a building, and I saw, and you find yourself having to choose, what am I going to prioritize in terms of reacting to and acting on? And that's really what it's become, because I just came from Brussels, where I met with the European Jewish Congress, and we were having this exact conversation. There's thousands of anti-Semitic incidents now. It's becoming nearly impossible to deal with every single one. So now we've got to prioritize. That's what's happened.
Avi Avraham Ben Lulu, thank you for joining me here at the Media Lion and maybe getting people to understand a little bit more about what's happening in the field of anti-Semitism.
Thank you very much for having me.